Hi, good morning, and welcome to the ZP Vlog and Podcast. So we like to do the vlog and podcast just once a week, really, and it's just a sort of wrap up from the news from ZP for the week. So we did do our ZP our ZP Food Sense webinar. So we do a weekly webinar. We always say, if you're a customer of ZP, we'll support you through personalized online training, weekly webinars, and monthly demos. So with that in mind, we did do our weekly webinar. And what I found very interesting on the Food Sense product, which is something that if you come from a chemistry background, in chemistry, if you want to make up a solution of a known concentration, you'll sort of know the mass, you'll know the molecular weight, you'll be able to determine what we call the moles. You'll be able to dissolve those moles into a concentration, and you'll kind of get molar concentration. We're quite familiar with this. It's very interesting when you look at the food industry that when they try to make consistent products. So let's say we talk about the pungency of a ginger shot or the hotness of a chili sauce. They don't have that approach. And you find out, well, in fact, they may have that approach. They may say, add by weight 50% of chili pepper. But because the chili pepper has a variability in terms of capsaicin, or if it's ginger, you have a variability in gingerol in that product, you end up with a very variable product. And so they actually need a more dynamic approach where they actually measure how much active material is in their ingredients. So by active material, how much capsaicin is in the chili, or how much gingerol is in the ginger, and then change the recipe based on how much active materials they actually have. But they don't, because they're not really measuring these active materials very often, or probably at all. They're probably following the process more by taste, which then means that they have a real problem with consistency of product. I think I've even heard the word, it's embarrassing, because they basically have no control. Anyway, so one of the, let's say, good things about Food Sense Generation 4 is actually we are able to allow them to measure their incoming materials. Therefore, they should be able to calculate the pungency or the hotness of their product, and then they can actually start doing the preparation of the product and follow that process and measure those active materials in real time so they can come to a consistent product. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to develop products and stuff like this, you do find until you start really talking to real customers, you just don't find this kind of material out. So that's the real, let's say, benefit of going to market, meeting with real people, finding out what the real problems are when that's going on. And I suppose that's actually the philosophy at Sense It All. At Sense It All, this is our kind of way of getting people to market as quickly as possible. I'm not going to rabbit on about it, but it's really important to actually start interacting with the real end users as quickly as possible and finding out what their objections are. That's just a pure philosophy at Zimmer and Peacock. So I'll come off that topic, but a very interesting webinar this week on Food Sense and how to make consistent products in the food industry. And it just also illustrates our whole philosophy at ZP about you've got to get onto the market, meeting real people, finding out what their real problems are as quickly as possible. We did have a ZP Developer Zone on Thursday, but we also had a ZP Developer Zone this morning as well. So today's the 25th of February. This morning we did cover Raman spectroscopy, and we did also cover wearable potassium sensors. Everyone's really interested in wearables these days, and I suppose I'm just trying to make people focus in on doing one wearable, because we have these kind of inquiries that come in that I want to do lactate and pH and sodium and potassium, possibly glucose, and it's just like you're doing too much. Start with one, get it right, but especially if you choose electrochemistry as your platform. Once you've mastered one of these, then it's much easier to go on to the next and the next and the next. But if you spread your resources out too thinly on too many sensors, you won't do any of them well. So you're better off going deep on one and then backing off. So we did put together actually a whole new page on, in fact, I've got the new page anyway, so I'll discuss that. But we did discuss Raman spectroscopy on carbon electrodes. And I basically said, look, you can, in Raman spectroscopy, you kind of excite to the sample with a laser, and then you look at the Raman spectrum. Lasers can be a little bit intense in terms of the energy, so you have to sort of turn down the power on those lasers. Make sure that you don't char, burn, fry, melt the sample itself. And I found them a scientific paper that said exactly that, because that was my instinct, but I also found, a reference for it as well. Which probably sort of says, that if people ask us a question, we don't just give fairly quick answers. We will, research the answers and then give them in a webinar format as well. Something that comes up a lot these days, so we did cover it on our Thursday webinar. People are always asking about the cortisol sensor. So I think in order to kind of answer that question now, we've actually said, okay, you can use cortisol sensors from ZP, but you have to use it on the SensiAll platform. So I did do a little bit of promotion on that this week. I did say that we did create a new page this week as well about making wearable sensors. And I use potassium as the example because the potassium sensor at ZP is probably one of our most mature sensors. I talked about the electronics, the sensor itself, the sweat patch, the test solution. So I did link to all of those, I would say all those things. And then I think the last sort of little bit of news from ZP this week really is, I just did a video just a minute ago actually about measuring the hotness of Carolina Reaper powder. I did get a comment on YouTube this week that said, God, you guys are getting boring. I know because we're talking about chili powders and ginger all the time. But I'd actually say that the things that we're covering in chili and ginger are not unique to chili and ginger. And these are actually reflecting wider problems in industry. Rapid, easy to do, low cost test is a wider industrial problem. We happen to be tackling it a lot in the food industry. But I think with any industry, I'll just make it up, the paint industry, I bet that accurate, easy to do test is probably, a problem in the paint industry, an industry full of dyes and pigments, and therefore could be addressed by electrochemistry. Probably doesn't use that much electrochemistry, and if people interpret what we sometimes say in more generic, you'll actually find out that what I'm saying is probably applicable across industries. I think an industry that would benefit from electroanalytical chemistry is probably the pharmaceutical industry. Most pharmaceutical molecules are intrinsically electrochemically active. If you're making what's called an active pharmaceutical ingredient, how do you know how much concentration of that material there is in that reactor? Well, they use quite sophisticated machines to do it, but actually they could have done it on a much lower cost, easier to use instrument. So we did cover the measuring the hotness of Carolina Reaper powder this week, but some of the lessons that we talk about in terms of precision and accuracy could be applied, I would say, much more generally. And of course, if you have any technical questions of ZP, we do have our ZP Developer Zone webinar. The next one will be on the 29th of February 2024. So if I was to summarize up, I did like the YouTube comment this week that, we are talking about chili and ginger quite a lot. And I agree, we are talking about chili and ginger quite a lot. If you're more generically interested in electroanalytical sciences and biosensors, just change the word to chili to ginger to just about any industry, and you'll find out that some of the things that we're talking about are more widely applicable. We do have 2 webinars this week as well. We have a big webinar on Tuesday, one in the morning and one in the afternoon. And this will be on the SensiAll platform. So anyone who listens to this who's really interested in commercializing electroanalytical sciences, please come to our webinar on Tuesday this week, either the morning or the afternoon, depending on where you are in the world. But if you're sort of interested in seeing FoodSense in a live demo, then we are doing a webinar and demo on Wednesday, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. We do one in the morning, one in the afternoon to cover the different time zones. So with that, I'll wrap it up. If you've got any questions on ZP, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Otherwise, we will do another, let's say, wrap up for the week next week. Okay, thanks very much.